Hello everybody, and welcome to My World Trigger, chapter number 229 and chapter number 230 review. Let's get started. So, last time in the whole universe of World Trigger, I started doing these reviews, and I talked about the two chapters that came out last November. Since then, we have had 1 month off in December, and we are back in January with two more chapters of World Trigger to talk about. What happened in the last chapter was there's pretty much all the stuff with Mizukami's squad, or with Mizukami's provisional squad in Teruya, right? And then this time, and it ended off right at the end with Osamu being like, hey, like I've got a plan to his Suwa squad, right? And this time, we open back up with the Suwa squad number 7, as pretty much Katori's just like, oh, some sneaky trick, and Osamu's just like, yeah, you could call it that. And we then just get this plan and just go through it from here, right? So, pretty much Osamu's like, anyway, at the end of the universal assignments, we've got 4 separate video clip problems. I could use my phone cameras too, and Yui, the operator, is like, hang on, Makumo, that's not gonna work. As we see Yui pretty much explain that, the ones that these video clips are only available to be played one time, and then there's a bunch of questions that get answered because of it, right? And we see that Yui thought the same thing about recording it, but her phone pretty much turned off and wasn't able to record it, right? So that is not a function that they can do, right? And we see Oki here, and he's like, man, they must have thought of everything. What's going on here, right? As Katori's just like, the leadership isn't so dense that they leave such an obvious loophole, of course. But Osamu's just like, hold on. What I was about to say is that I can take a picture of the list of questions after the video clip plays. And Katori's like, why the list? And Osamu's like, let me explain. So I use my phone to take a picture of the entire question list for video clip problem 1. That means, and Katori's just like, oh, I get it. You want to send that pic to all of us so we know exactly what to look for even before we watch the clip. And Osamu's like, that can work too, but not quite. Instead, since there are 20 questions in total, we can divvy them between the 5 of us with 4 per person, right? And he's like, and after that, we can replay the video on everyone's laptop but mine, so we can all watch the clips for problem 1 4 times. And Osamu continues to be like, that'll allow us to cobble together the full set of the 20 most likely correct answers, right? So we've got a great visual here on page 4, where we see that each of the 5 of them are all crowded around the laptop, right? They're crowded around Suwa's laptop, Yui's laptop, Oki's laptop, and Katori's laptop, and they're all taking notes for these specific 4 questions they're looking for, and they can rewatch it every time to try to find at least one of the answers in each one, and maybe 2, and they can reconfirm that on the next thing, right? Oki's just like, oh, that'll easily get us 20 points. But Osamu's like, with those video clip problems, I'd say that getting half of them right would normally be considered a decent score. But with perfect scores each, we'll be outpacing other squads by about 10 points per question. And Suwa's then like, and we're looking at 4 of these video problems times the 5 of us. That means we get a 200-point lead. And Yui's is like, I already finished one of my problems though. Oops. And Katori's just like, however, you hesitate to share his plan because you don't know if it's against the rules. And Osamu's like, yes. And Suwa's like, why do you think that, Makumo? Is this legit or shady? And Osamu's like, I'm thinking it's a legitimate strategy. Suwa's just like, why? And Osamu then says, well, to the right of each problem's title on the computer, they list out the skills that the problem is testing. The whole series of video clip problems is testing memory, observation, and creativity. Did you notice that? And then we see that these video clip problems are like number 379, and they say this, right? And they're worth 20 points, while like number 2, the other one we see, is in counterattack positioning, which is strategy and logic, which is worth 2 points, right? So these video memory things are worth a lot of points, so it'd be good for the team to get them. At this point, Yui's just like, hey, you're right, it does really say creativity. And Osamu's just like, when tackling these a normal way, creativity wouldn't really be a factor. So my takeaway is that the leadership was imagining a different creative way of solving these, right? And Oki's just like, come to think of it, these ones are worth a ton of points. It's kind of weird, as he's like, it almost makes them seem special somehow. And Sua's just like, well, that settles it then. We're going with Mikumo's plan. And everybody's like, all right, sounds good. As Sua continues, I'll take full responsibility if there's an issue. So now let's get to these problems, right? And whenever he finishes this, Katori's looking around and she's like, hey, would anybody mind if we share this idea with Rokuro Squad? Don't remember who Rokuro is. It's Wakamura. It's the squad that Hughes is on, right? And Yui's just like, I don't know. And we even see here that Sua's just like, you mean Wakamura Squad? It's just, I always love this about World Trigger, how there are so many names just constantly being thrown around, right? I mean, before I started this first chapter, I have the World Trigger data book, the border briefing file from Japan, right? And thankfully, on most of the character profiles, right, it says all of the names in English. So I'm just flipping through it and just being like, all right, that's Sasumori. All right, that's Kuga, right? That's okay. That's Osamu. Oh, that's Taichi. That's right. Kitazoe. Looking at all the operators. So it's just like this series has so many characters where it's funny whenever the characters in the series themselves can't keep them all straight. And at this point, Katori continues with her sort of thing. Look, I get it. His squad's obviously the bomb because Rokuro's such a dingus, but I feel a little bad for squad mates who get on the short end of the stick, right? And everybody sort of realized that she just wants to help him out, right? But Oki's like, I get it. And isn't Hyusei hoping to join the away mission too? Their squad needs all the points they can get, however they can get them, right? And if someone's like, I mean, I don't mind, it would help my squad too, but is everybody okay with it, right? And we then see Yui and Sua have one of the like Tryon brain talk things, right? As does this have a technical term? I don't know if I need to go reread World Trigger again, but I forget if they've got a technical term for how they're supposed to speak like that, right? But the Tryon body function, Yui's talking to Sua, and she's like, you think this is maybe connected to Katori being down in the dumps, right? And Sua's just like, it seems she's worried about her squad mate's score. And at this point, Sua comes out of it and says to everybody, fine, why not? After all, my squad's, Hitaso is there too, right? Which is Sasumori, if I'm not mistaken. And he's like, Mikumo, send your plan over to Wakamura. And he's like, will do. At this point, we now cut over to Wakamura squad, who everybody has just gotten a text, except for Hyusei, of course, right? And we see, oh man, what is this little kid's name? I just had it. Ooh, what squad is he on? I think he's on a Coma squad. Let me go check real fast. No, this isn't the Kai kid. I'll be back in a second. I'm back, it's Hanazaki. So Hanazaki here, he's like, oh snap, good on him for coming up with that, right? We see Sasumori there, and he's just like, it's almost like your idea for splitting up and using the assignments, Hyusei. And Hyusei is just like, Hughes is so much easier to say. Hughes is just like, the kid does learn from me after all, right? As Cone the Operator is like, really, for real? And at this point, we see the something that Osamu sent over, right? And it says, it was Katori's idea to share a strategy for your quad. Of course, it's up to you and your squad mates whether or not you use it. Good luck to us both. As we see that Wakamura got this, and he's just like, oh, Yoko, right? Cone then says, well, what's your call, Wakamura? Hyusei and I still have all of those video clip problems to do. Sasumori, and oh, why did I forget this kid's name again? Oh, jeez. What's his name? Hanazaki. That's gonna be burned in my brain by the end of this episode. Hanazaki. Right? But everybody's just like, yeah, we've all got to still do this stuff, right? And what's his face? Wakamura's just like, of course, we are doing this. And he continues, Sasumori, you'll be the one to take a picture of the question list. And he's like, you got it. And he's pretty much, at 10 o'clock, we'll all tackle the video clip problems together, right? Everybody's like, sounds good. But then Cone says, we better give Sua Squad a big thank you. And Wakamora's just like, right. We cut back to Sua Squad 7 as Osama's like, sounds like Wakamora's squad is going with our strategy, right? And Oki's like, isn't that great? And Katori's just like, if Rokuro refused out of some stupid sense of pride, he'd even be a bigger idiot than I thought, right? And of course we know he needs all the help he can get, right? And at this point we see that Yui's phone goes off as she is getting a call from Yuta Miura. Miura is the other person on Katori's squad who is not Hana, right? So I'm pretty sure we've all known that by now, but he is the attacker. I'm pretty sure he's just a standard attacker, right? And he was like, oh, it's from Miura, and Katori's like, oh, really? It's from him? And we see the text that Yui got, and it says, hey, this is Miura. I'm writing to you about Yoko's Omni Penchant skill. Based on what I've heard, I'm thinking that it might actually allow her to utilize any penchant type skills belonging to opponents she's faced. Throughout this past session, Yoko made a point of taking the strategies used against her and reworking them into her own strategies to use, right? And he's like, this leads me to believe that maybe the leadership took notice and gave Yoko's Balsam unit stat an ability that mimics that. And we see that, like, he is actually talking about the B-Rank Wars last season when, of course, Katori took the spider from Osamu and used it against Sua and Kakizaki squad. Was it, was it that? Or maybe it was Natsu squad. I don't remember. I honestly don't care that incredibly much. But it was that final rank battle where we saw that Katori took and used the spider, right? After she got beat by with Osamu. And the text continues, in the event that she hasn't changed her Omni Penchant skill loadout since the first day, it might be worth resetting and checking again. I'm sorry if I'm wrong about this. Please look after our captain, right? And we see Yui looking over, and she's like, he's suggesting you double check your Omni Penchant skill list, right? As they move over to Mouse, and we see that this thing has so much more expansion on it, right? And Yui's just like, whoa, there's so many more options here, right? And we see that most of these are like a penchant for Scorpion. When Scorpion is put in your trigger loadout, an available action tokens increases by 2, right? It's a bunch of technical game stuff, right? But just to read them all out, we've got penchant for Scorpion, penchant for pistols, penchant for wire mobility, penchant for Kogetsu, penchant for penchant for grenade launchers, penchant for machine guns, penchant for shotguns, penchant for lead bullet, penchant for guard, penchant for silencer, and penchant for teleporter, right? As Oki's just like, well, ain't that something? They weren't kidding when they meant that Omni business, right? And Katori's just like, none of these perks are anything useful, though. But Osama's like, no, wait, these could really expand our possible tactics. Is it okay if I quit my assignment work early and spend more time prepping for the battle sim? And Sue's just like, yeah, Osama, you're the tactical planner. I told you to make cheese earlier. Just go do it, right? And Yui's like, not to sound mean, but I'm kind of surprised about how much Katori's squad cares about each other, right? And Oki's just like, for real, that must be their power of friendship, yeah? As Katori's just like, what was that? Take that back and knock it off. It's disgusting, right? As Oki continues, you sure don't want to give Sohei that hot tip about the video clips, right? And Katori, I'm sorry, names in the series. Katori's just like, listen, you got it all wrong. We're not like that, right? If I'm not mistaken, Sohei is the one little kid with Alright, dog. Okay, I'm going to find out who Sohei is. I'll be back. I'm back. Sohei is Hana's last name. So, okay, so the joke there was Oki was just being like, you sure you don't want to tell the hot topic to your entire squad, right? Alright, now we switch over to Kodera Squad 9, or Kodera Squad 6. This is a squad that Miura is in, so we're cutting to see their opinion on everything now, right? And we see that Miura apparently just sent a text, and he's just like, "Thought so. Yoko actually has way more skills available to her, right?" What's the little crap's name? Too many names in the series. I'll be back once again. I'm back. The little guy's Okadera. I don't know how I forgot that. I know who Okadera is. Alright, so we see that Miura has gotten a text, and he's like, Yoko actually has way more skills available to her. Okadera is just like, no, let's hope they could eat into those leads of your top-tier squads, right? And we see Katora, or Katori, no. Yeah, Katora, yeah. Katora's there, and she's like, well, we happen to be a top-tier squad at the moment, so hopefully this won't come back to bite us, right? And here we see the operator that is here working for Kodera Squad, Rokuda, right? And we see she's here, and she's like, if you don't mind, there's something I have to say. And Kodera's just like, what's wrong, Rokuda? And she's like, the truth of the matter is, I'm terrible at parallel processing. I can't manage to keep multiple thoughts running through my head at once. And he's like, yesterday, it was all I could to keep up with the action. And I'm far to blame for our squad's many losses, right? And she's like, and now if even more units keep track of today, I have a feeling that I'm going to drag everyone down. And Kodera's just like, I think we'll just be just fine. And he's like, yesterday Urashima sent me a text. He said that you have trouble with parallel processing and asked me to back you up. Great note here because, of course, Rokuda is Urashima's operator, and Urashima is a squad of one, right? So it makes sense why she really just knows how to deal with Urashima and what he's doing with, and not much else besides for that, right? We see Katora here, and she's again like, I was thinking about this yesterday. What if you focus your energy on tagging the units on the field, Rokuda? First, you can assign placeholder numbers to unidentified enemy units like yesterday. But since you got confused when we all start calling out information, after each turn we can just jot down notes about who we've identified, and you can process to them as we hand. Does that sound good to you? I messed up reading there, but pretty much she's just like, instead of just all yelling at you what everything's going on, we'll just pass notes with what we know, and we can figure it out that way, right? And at this point, Katora's just like, there's never much actual combat during the first two rounds, so it's not too much to ask of us. And being that they will have time to shift around, find out who people are, and give the numbers to Rokuda, right? And she's just like, I think I can handle that. As, what's his face? Kodera is just like, once you're done with all of the tagging, just provide us with the intel to the best of your ability. And Rokuda's just like, yes, of course. And she's like, thank you very much. Okadera's just like, I never expected Urashima to be such a thoughtful guy. And he's like, I just picture him as a dude just swiping my kills during a defense mission, right? And we see that Urashima's sort of there talking, breaking the fourth wall. I don't know if this is something that actually happened, right? But he's just like, huh, me a kill stealer? Nah, it's your fault for lagging behind. As we see that Miura's just like, yeah, true. But Rokuda's just like, I'm sorry for the trouble I've caused. And Okadera's just like, it's nothing. You don't have to apologize, Rokuda. But she's just like, but I do. I believe it's my fault that Urashima did those things, right? And Katora's just like, that sounds like a conversation for later. In any case, we'll have to thank Urashima properly. And Rokuda's just like, right, of course, we should focus on the assignments for now, right? And we get this narration as we go see some of our squads. And it's like, and so every squad formulated their own unique strategies. And as we see something that says nearly 3 p.m., time until exercise begins, 123 seconds. We cut back to a squad, and it's like 2 minutes until we start. Everyone's set. Osama's like, I'm good. Oki's like, ready for action. Tori's just like, yup. And Yui's like, sure am. As we get to the final narration of the chapter being like, Battle Simulation Exercise 3, begin. As we see that each character has 5 characters, right? We see there's 5 Suwas, 5 Osamus, 5 Okis, and 5 Katoras, right? But going back to the characters that we saw doing the squads, right? Whenever we got to begin with that narration, we just see Mizukami's squad with Toroya, and everybody else is going over defense strategies, right? We see OG, Mr. King there. He's got a coma in his squad. The little girl from Yuba squad is there. I forget her name, and it looks like, oh man, what's his name? It's a guy on maybe no, that's the wrong squad. It's the wrong squad to begin with, right? But then we also see Kitazoe's squad with Kikuchihara, Hana, and Sasamori on it, right? And that's where we end chapter 229. Yeah, on to chapter 230. Alright, so chapter 320. I didn't mention it for the last chapter, but last chapter was the away mission test, part 26. And if you believe me, this is part 27, right? But this chapter starts off with Osamu's squad, Sua Squad 7, with some narration of that Osamu gives of, it's the final day of the battle simulation exercises. Just as we discussed, we went with our 3 mini squads composed of diverse units, right? We assembled the mini squads like this, as we see that in Oki's mini squad, he's got 4 Oki units and 1 Reiji unit. Osamu has 2 Osamus, 2 Suwas, 1 Katori, 1 is it Natsu? I don't know if it's Nazu or not, but I'm pretty sure it is, and 1 Oki, right? Katori has 2 Osamus, 2 Katoris, 1 Kako, the errant Kako squad is her backup, and 1 Sua, and Sua squad has 2 Suas, 2 Katoris, 1 Osamu, and 1 backup unit that I don't remember the name of, right? And we pretty much see at the very bottom of the chapter, there's a little note saying, with an asterisk, like, chosen backup units may change from match to match, right? Saying that, yes, they will change. So pretty much, Osamu continues on the narration with, all of my avatars were dual wielding ray gusts for improved defense, right? And we then cut to Sua being like, don't forget that the big change to the rules, we got to score at least a 5-unit lead to win. And everybody's just like, all right, sounds good. We then see that Osamu's just like, our opponent in the first match was Kakizaki's squad 3. As we see everybody in the squad, right? We see Kakizaki, the operator, which I don't remember the name of, Kagiura, Taichi, and Inukai, right? Pretty much what is said is the first 3 turns of the match saw us taking pop shots and sniping at each other from either side of the central road, right? The first real scrimmage came on turn 4. Each of the 3 mini squads unveiled its coordinated strategy. Just as we planned, we took a 2-unit lead. We then cut to the actual, like, not narration, with Yui being like, Bakumo's units are standing with a lot more attacks than before, right? And Osamu's like, yeah, it's really thanks to that tip from Kadera's squad, right? He continues with the narration. Then on turn 5, we expanded our lead to a 4-unit difference. But on the final turn 6, Kagiura's units evaded our attacks over and over. We fell 1 step short of the 5-unit lead needed to win, and a 4-unit difference led to a draw. As we see, Yui's just like, oh man, we were so close. As Oki's just like, Kagiura's evasion stat is just too dang high. He's also got an evasion boosting skill to make things worse. Katori's just like, that guy is way too freaking slippery, right? And Sua's just like, nothing you can do about that bad RNG, right? Especially when we're already employing our strats just like we practiced. Yui's then just like, yeah, all of our combos are going much smoother than yesterday already. You can really tell the difference. As Sua's just like, on to the next one, and everybody's just like, right. Match 2 is Kitazoe's squad. As we see on this squad, we've got Kitazoe, Hana, Kikuchihara, Sasamori, Yeah, well, I'm slowly opening World Trigger Volume 18 to get the name right. Kai. Nope. Two characters with white hair that have almost the exact same face. I think one of them's from Ozma Squad and the other is from another squad, right? I don't care that much. We didn't see Osamu being like, their starting positions look very familiar to yesterday's, so we can expect those explosive shots to start raining down, right? And Yui's just like, go with the strategy we talked about then, right? And Osamu's just like, got it. As he gives some more narration, on the first turn, the enemy took their positions on the roofs. They began bombarding the central road on turn 2. And Oki's just like, even more fireworks than yesterday, huh? And Yui's just like, more Zoe units mean bigger booms, right? As we see some Osamu tactics talk, right? He's just like, the tricky thing about Meteor is needing to change one's defensive angle depending on where the shot falls. As we see, for instance, Osamu has his guard, shield, circle, half circle thing surrounded around him. And whenever it's facing the explosion, he's safe, even if he's in it a little bit, right? But whenever it's not facing, he dies, right? And he's just like, meteor power drops the farther you move from the point of impact, right? As long as one avoids a direct hit, a full shield is enough to defend. And we see a little asterisk, except in the case of my units, being that Osamu's Tryon is awful, right? Continue on the narration, right? This is the counter strategy we came up with. The mini squad strategy makes such a complicated formation easier to maneuver. As we see what's going on here is, for example, what was it? Is it his? No, we see Katori's lineup here. She's got two Osamus with just his Ray Gust out running up front in a it's sort of like a columnized, it's like a 2x3 formation. Two Osamus running up front. In the middle, set back a little bit, is the one Sua unit with a full shield. Kako's behind him with a full shield, and the two Katoris are behind two Osamus with full shields, right? And we get this little text like, defend against the meteor with full shields while protecting Mikumo units from behind. We see the Mikumo units are keeping wary of attackers and snipers laying ahead, right? Osamu narration continues as he's like, each mini squad would cross the road while holding that formation, hoping to attack Kitazoe's 3 turret roofs at once, right? Meanwhile, Oki would keep the enemy snipers in check. And Katori's just like, this is his turn to do it. I'm gunning for number 14. Sua's like, I've got 17. And Osamu's like, and I'll aim for number 5. And on turn 3, we see all of the mini squads run for their designated target. And all of the Kitazoes just firing and completely destroying Katori's mini squad, right? And same to Mikumo's and Sua's, right? As everybody's just like, oh, what in the world is going on here, right? As we see that in this one turn, you had 3 Katoris, the Nazu unit, 2 Suas and 1 Osamu all bail out while nobody bailed on Kitazoe's turn, right? And we see Katori's just like, they got 4 of mine, and Osamu's like, I'm down to 3 units. And Oki's here just like, they saw through our plan to charge ahead in little groups and cracked our shields with overlapping explosions. Narration from Osamu. On the next turn, Sua's mini squad, which had survived the bombardment unscathed, fought back vigilantly, but the massive lead the opponent secured in the battle proved fatal, if I could speak. He's like, it was a lot less, it was a brutal loss even with an 11 unit difference, which is massive, which means Kitazoe's squad won by 5 units necessary, and in 6 more, which is massive. Osamu's here just like, they read our moves, or rather, they lurked us into making those exact same moves. So it's just like, it's like they bait us into a trap over the past 2 days. That was Squad 4's one at a time used cheese stride, and it worked like a charm. As we see Yui looking over to Katori, and Katori's just sort of like, ah man, that sort of sucks. And she's like, God, I was hoping for some early momentum. And Oki looks over to Osamu, who's sort of looking down too, and he's like, man, the squad's morale ain't looking too hot. At this point, we shift over to Kitazoe's Squad 4, and here we have a bunch of characters. I know we got Kizaru, I know we have Hana, I know we have Kikuchihara. Alright, screw it. I'm gonna figure out what these other two little kids' names are, and I'll get back. Alright, I'm back. So, one of the dudes is Kai from Ikoma Squad, and the other is, Kazuto, who is maybe from OG Squad, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I for the life of me could not remember Kazuto's name, and I would have never gotten that, right? But we start off with Kai being like, man, that felt great. Your strategy was perfect, Somi. What is his face? He's always just like fish in a barrel. And Kikuchihara is just like, didn't I say we shouldn't waste our focus on the battle sims? Kazuto is like, the squads that worked hard on strategies to counter us up through yesterday are more likely to fail victim to our new tactic. And Kizo is just like, it's barely any different from what we've been doing, so it's basically a cinch to pull off. And we see Kikuchihara is now pretty much brain-talking through Trion Bodies with Hana, or Some, as we get to know her here. And Kikuchihara is just like, are you really fine with destroying Katori that badly? Especially after when she was showed down yesterday? Not that it'd be a good reason to hold back, but still. And Hana's like, Yoko will be just fine. In fact, this has probably lit a flame in her. As we see Katori here, and she's just sitting, and he's like, you know what, good for you, Hana, as she's looking at the battle after-screen tactics sort of things, right? And Katori just gets up, and she's like, what's with the doom and gloom, Four Eyes? That was only our second match today, which leaves plenty of chances to rack up the wins. As everybody looks around and they're sort of surprised, as Osama's like, you're right, on to the next one then, as we end chapter 230 in our 2 chapters here for January. So these 2 chapters are really good, I think. They really work better, and they both have a central focus, right? I mean, the first part of 229 is all about figuring out some more test stuff, right? Until eventually they share all the information with everybody, right? Wakamoto Squad, Miura Squad, right? And then going back into Miura Squad and the whole stuff with Rokuda and Urashima. It's this character development that we are getting here in this arc for all the characters that half of us don't remember, right? As we've seen how many times I've had to cut to find out characters' names in this episode. And then we have chapter 230. This is a great way to do the battle sims, because it's all coming from mostly Osamu, who is, at this point, Osamu is the main character. For as many people who want to say it's Yuma, it may have been Yuma in sort of first part of the series, but it is truly Osamu here, right? And with Osamu's sort of narration going through the battles and sort of breaking them down while still giving reason to it and giving development to strategies and seeing why these characters are losing or why these characters are winning, it's just really good and something that we really haven't seen up since then, right? And really just to have the moment at the end with Katori being like, alright, let's get going now. Katori is one of my favorite characters in World Trigger, so it's really just awesome for that to see that and have it. So these are very good volumes, or not volumes, very good chapters, and yeah, I don't know if we are getting more World Trigger in February. I know there has been this glitch on the Shonen Jump website where it's saying that we're getting a new chapter coming relatively soon, but we're not. I think the next chapter should be coming in February, and if that is 1 or 2, who knows, but yeah. This has been World Trigger, chapter number 229 and chapters number 230, and yeah, these were great chapters, and I'll see you next time. Hope you enjoyed this, and this is Glowplasma 231 out.